back to the Mina Kimes Show featuring Lenny, the only NFL podcast where one of the hosts thinks Bo Nix was named after President Obama's Portuguese water dog. That's Lenny. I'm Mina Kimes. We're going to be talking about Bo Nix today. We're going to be talking about Brock Purdy, who just signed a monster deal. We're going to be talking about all of the quarterbacks because today is the pod I do every year that I would say, I feel pretty comfortable saying enrages the most people. So naturally, I had to bring in a calming, soothing, intelligent voice, Ollie Connolly, the host and writer of the Read Optional Substack and podcast, which is an excellent Substack, by the way. You should subscribe. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be brought on, that you will bring all this hatred and spewing into my life. What a joy.
The coach rankings, Eagles fans got a little riled up. I feel like top offenses and defenses, you get a little bit of surliness, but there's something about the quarterback position that just breaks people's brains. Or not, or I guess people view NFL quarterbacks like they're children or something. I don't know, just the level of defensive-ness you see for teams, their fan bases, and their quarterbacks. What do you think before we dive into this, what do you think it is that makes it so uniquely controversial and drives so much passion?
I think it's just a league built on hope, and the quarterback is the symbol of the hope all the time. When you tell them, hey, this guy might not be as good as some of the other guys, they extinguishes some of the hope, and people get very upset and very protective. And it can go the other way too, where people are out on their guy and they think he stinks, and you want to remind them, like, I think he's still maybe the 17th, 18th best starter in the league, and it's not always the best. Just admit yourself into quarterback purgatory for year after year chasing an upgrade.
That's me talking to Raiders fans when they signed Geno Smith. I was like, guys, you won. So great. Yeah, I think that's it. I think also it's just such a contextual position that what we're going to do here is put them in a vacuum. It's hard for fans sometimes to think of the quarterback separate from their circumstances. It's also hard to capture everything a quarterback does statistically, right? Because of those, it's so dependent on your offensive line and the play calling and the skill players. It's not like, like a wide receiver who puts up great stats is almost always a great wide receiver. And so I think you can spin the stats in quarterbacking a multitude of ways. I'm sure we're going to do that today. So same parameters that I use every year. I think I've been using now for at least over 5 years, which is we are drafting quarterbacks going back and forth in a vacuum. So this is not how we think they're statistically going to do next year in their offense. It is if we were starting a team from scratch, essentially. And we are using a 3-year timeline, which I have settled on because I think it punishes older guys and younger guys the least. So yeah, those are the rules. I've decided to let you go first.
Oh, thank you.
Have your big board. Do you have your big board ready, Ollie?
I have my big board ready. I've been painstakingly going over this. It was really fun to go back and look at some guys I hadn't seen in a while. And if you had just asked me to do it on 24 hours notice, I probably would have had a wildly different big board than when I went back through and watched some plays, particularly the young guys who took way bigger leaps than I thought when I was in kind of the mishmash of the season. You're just kind of watching game after game after game, where you can sit and watch someone progress throughout the season. You can get a better feel, I think, for where the trajectory is going. So that was interesting. The number one pick, I'm sure this guy has had a monopoly atop the board for however long you've been doing it now, a half decade. I still hemmed and hawed about it for a long time because I think it's the tightest it's probably been in a long time between 3 guys and 2 guys in particular for me. I did ultimately because we stripped away all the environment, the infrastructure, and just basically have talent and age and skill set. And so I took Patrick Mahomes number 1 overall.
So, okay, there's a big 4, I think. I'm sure you have a top 4. You could maybe a top 3. I don't know. But I think there's like a pretty clear 4-man tier here. And how you rank them is interesting. Mahomes has been number 1 every year that I've done this. Let me ask you this. What is it about Patrick Mahomes last year, even though last year the 3 quarterbacks below him played better than him, right? Why do you still have him as your number 1? What is it that you saw? And obviously we have to talk about circumstances as well, because that's a big part of this. Why do you think he is still the best quarterback in the NFL?
Yeah, it's more of a gut feel than it is anything you can dig into and analyze. I feel like it's like picking against Michael Jordan in his prime and just saying like, oh, Ewing had an unbelievable season, we'll put Ewing first. When people are doing some of the MVP ballot stuff, there's still just the figure it out magic in the biggest, most important moments. I love watching his style and game evolve and him kind of check every single quarterback box you could ever imagine. He can basically drop into, I think, any offense in the history of the game, and he could Tom Brady his way through a season, he could Dan Marino his way through a season. A few of the other guys have that going on too, but I don't think quite the same resume as he's been able to show year after year. So he, I think, has played in pretty bleak circumstances on at different levels of the offense, where it's offensive line one year, no deep threat the next season, having his kind of check down artist be a tight end whose then legs kind of like get dissolved on him during the middle of a run. So I think you've just seen him have to overcome so many different obstacles and evolve his game in a way some of these guys have done, but in probably more of a smaller sample size.
Yeah, I mean, again, okay, I keep saying the big four. It's obviously Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen, and Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, Josh Allen. Yeah, sorry, Patrick Mahomes. Right. I think it's pretty undeniable that he's the worst situation of the four. I don't think you can even come close to making a case, right? Over the last couple of years, in just about every way, absent play calling. But again, that is, you don't see him getting an appreciable advantage from that at this point. I think if you re-scrambled these guys, it makes for an interesting discussion. Like, how would they do in this situation? The one thing I would add about Mahomes, I think, who was also my one, by the way, you still saw that he continues to add value also with his legs in a way that I think is actually really reflected in the stats and maybe still an underappreciated part of his game. He is not pushing the ball downfield because there aren't reliable people to push the ball downfield to. He is, at the end playing behind a very bad offensive line, but it was a constant like revolving door. If it sounds like we're making excuses, I am, because they're valid, I guess is all I'm trying to say. And then there were still these just undeniable moments of brilliance where you see, oh, right, he is still him. I think like about that, it was on Christmas, the game where he threw the touchdown while falling down forward. And, we do take those things for granted now, I think, with him. I am not sure that this pick is that there's going to be a bounce back. I'm pretty low on some of the choices that they've made this offseason, spoiler alert. But I think we have seen enough from him over the course of his career that we can isolate him in a vacuum and identify what it is about him that makes him so special.
Yeah, I hope the bounce back will just be maybe some more variety to the passing game. We could see him uncork it a little more. They could bring some more verticality back to the offense, and it kind of sparks the childlike joy of just watching him play the position that we had like 2-3 years ago. Whereas now he's in full pre-snap Operation Brady mode, which is fun to see as the kind of evolution, but not quite as fun to just like watch on Sundays or Monday nights when you just want to see some of the Mahomes fireworks. He still taps into that stuff in the playoffs. He's still, even though it's almost like an old-fashioned idea breaking the game now, like him playing his best stuff in the best moment, and you getting that kind of feeling in the gut, like, oh god, they gave him a possession left. It is the old Brady thing of, if you just give him a chance, it's a wrap. No one else in the league gives me that kind of feeling. I'm kind of sat there rooting for Lamar. Please get over this. Please don't be John Elway in my lifetime. Josh Allen, please do this. Please get past this. Whereas with him, it's just, there's a coolness, there's a calmness to everything he does, even with an inferno happening around him where Mike Caliendo's in the guard, they move Joe Toon to left tackle, the whole operation falls apart, and still he's able to find a way to get to the big dance until it just kind of submarines on him.
All right, I've got the second overall pick. I'm going to pick the player who I think was the best quarterback in football last year. That's Lamar Jackson. I have talked about this endlessly when we talked about MVP. It was quite close between him and Josh Allen for me. It was not a runaway pick by any means. And for the same reasons, it is very close between him and Josh Allen for me personally. We'll see what you pick over third overall. So I don't need to relitigate, I guess, why I have him. I'll just talk a little bit about Lamar and what I saw from him. I mean, I thought last year was his best season as a pro. The way he has continued evolving as a decision maker, it's the accuracy he shows in collapsing pockets, clean pockets, throwing quickly, throwing on extended plays. It's all reflected in his stats, which are, first in a number of those metrics. DVOA ended up being like a big one for me with my vote. I think just to isolate something though that I just think needs to be discussed with him and doesn't, because there's a million things we can talk about with Lamar Jackson. The dude doesn't throw interceptions anymore.
No.
Right? Like he doesn't take sacks, he doesn't throw interceptions. And to Josh Allen's credit, neither does Allen. So this isn't like, but I just think it's such a he has like an Aaron Rodgers level of discretion now in not putting the ball in harm's way, coupled with an unbelievable playmaking ability. And that's just so special.
Yeah, I mean, he's just the perfect quarterback. I mean, it's that simple. I think that season will somewhat get lost to time over the next 2-3 years as we get into kind of legacy conversations of who is Lamar. And then when historians look back in 40 years, they'll be going through Pro Football Reference with AI or whatever, going, "What is this? Was this real? Did this happen?" A guy that quick, that impressive, that with that playmaking ability was Joe Montanaing his way past everyone with rhythm and feel in the pocket. It's the most absurd season I think we're going to see in a long, long time. That just the under pressure. So if you mentioned that he's not turning the ball over, he's not getting sacked, there's no negative plays, there's absolutely no fat to the game. And then just the level of explosivity in the passing game and running the ball when he decides to, it's just off the charts. The under pressure stuff, he's under pressure a lot. I think way more than people understand because he seems pretty relaxed and chill back there. The pressure numbers, some of the EPA figures where he's only the third guy in the modern issue of the league to have a positive EPA per play while under pressure. It so outstrips even Tom Brady's best season. It so outstrips even Mahomes' best season. The second best guy in the league under pressure last year in total EPA per play was Josh Allen. He had a negative EPA per play. It just doesn't happen. I just cannot get over where his game has gone, the level he's risen to. He was always a phenomenal drop back passer going back to college, playing this pro style offense back in college football. The idea he couldn't do that stuff was just laughable for anyone who actually watched him play rather than just, devolve into cliches or stereotypes. But there's such a maturity and growth to his game now where some of the no-look stuff, the looking off defenders, throwing to grass rather than throwing to players, he's just ascended to the most absurd level I think we're ever going to see a guy play at last season.
Do you have the same number 3 as me?
Probably yes.
Well, I just revealed it. I mean,
okay, there you go.
Yeah, Lamar was a little bit about this guy. Hurry.
I have Josh Allen there. Heartbroken you took Lamar. I know we're picking between the best of the best and nitpicking up here, but I really wanted to praise Lamar's season last year. Allen, for me, the thing that still is just stands out the most is talking about being under pressure. Still the absurd chunk plays down the field. And he was playing in an unbelievable environment last season. I think that's the best all-around team they put around him in terms of scheme and talent all around him. And I love seeing kind of the evolution and changes in his game too, but he still just wants to rip it when he feels heat. And I know he goes on these kind of hot streaks and cold streaks, but that's happening far less than it's ever happened in the past. It's pretty much just hot streak now when he gets lit up. So I had him third off the board.
I think what's remarkable about both Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen, when we do this, we're talking about the next 3 years. They're both young. They've both proven they were both very durable last year. I mean, Allen is just like a tank, right? And they both have just gotten better. It's crazy, right? Like there are already these mutant cyborg quarterbacks who are undeniable talent from the jump. Well, not from the jump, pardon me, with Josh Allen, but it took a couple years and then boom, took off like a rocket ship. But last year, both you just saw improvement in specific, unique ways. Coupled with, but it's funny, like Mahomes, became just like the supercomputer. Allen and Jackson, like they have evolved as decision makers in terms of their accuracy, etc. And they're willing to play careful, cautious football and take what defenses are giving them. But you still see the fireworks, as you just alluded to with Allen, in moments where they needed to as well. They're both incredibly clutch performers. Josh Allen just doesn't take sacks, just doesn't get sacked. I mean, it was very close for me, and I suspect I know who your number 4 is.
It is. Wait, aren't you fourth? Did I pick Josh Allen?
Oh, pardon me, I'm 4th. Sorry, back 4 to me. Sorry. Okay, Joe Burrow is my 4. So I thought last year was Burrow's best season as a pro. I was he's a guy who I think too, everybody thinks, he just came into the league, such a finished product. He was so smart and accurate or whatever. And people kind of forget about his first season, but because of the surroundings. But I really think you have seen him also, in addition to the two guys I mentioned, continue evolving. And I thought last year, the playmaking from him was the best I've ever seen. And I actually think there were aspects of his game those first couple of years where he had some flaws that kind of got scrubbed over a little bit. Um, and it's been wild to see him continue evolving as well and growing in confidence in terms of the throws he's attempting, the plays he's attempting, the throws he makes on the move, the way he's always been very good at navigating pressure, but I thought he was extraordinary last season. It's like crazy that he's the fourth best quarterback in the NFL, right? Like I'm talking
Yeah.
about him. He's unbelievable. We are just so like this top four is so insane right
Yeah,
now.
if we send him back 26 years, he's ripping off like 5 MVPs in a row, and we've never seen anything like it in our lifetimes. I mean, it's wild to watch what he does when they still refuse to change like the core aspects of the offense. He's like, it's the same offense I've run for most of my career. I don't want to change it. When we try to change it, I look really uncomfortable. I get angry in the huddle and I come back and call my own plays the next drive. I'll give you guys a drive. It's pretty bad. We come back, I run my own stuff. I shred everyone apart. And just the figures he has when you take off all the training wheel stats that everyone talks about with the RPOs and the play action and all this stuff, he just roasts everyone by far. If it's just straight drop back football, he's comfortably the best pure pocket passer in the NFL right now. Pocket navigation, you mentioned kind of second reaction plays or finding his own windows. I thought, like you mentioned, last season there was more of taking off and trying to create outside the pocket, do some different things, but still just the ability to kind of slip and slide in the pocket, and body's going one way, arm goes the other way, finds a guy cutting across the formation. Still, he just does it at such a high level. It's him and Lamar, I think, right now are just in a completely different tier of what they can kind of do maneuvering through the pocket.
This is this is going to infuriate Bengals fans, perhaps. I feel that if you flipped his situation with Patrick Mahomes, they would both produce the same results. Like I think like what we saw from Mahomes last year, which statistically obviously a down year, wasn't even considered an MVP candidate, but was still good enough and obviously the generator. Yeah, they went to the Super Bowl. And the same thing what we saw from Burrow, where that was one of the best offenses in football. He was throwing it. I think it would be about the same.
It would depend if Burrow just said, "I'm running my Joe Burrow offense,
Yeah,
no matter
that's
who's
true.
around me." I feel like Andy Reid would lose his love for the game and go and work on a goat farm or something when Joe Burrow is like, "I refuse to do
Can you
anything that's new or
can
innovative."
you can you imagine though running the Joe Burrow offense with like Sky Moore? No, it wasn't. He wasn't their number one. I was, Xavier Worthy.
Mhm.
I mean, ooh, I guess I don't want it to seem like we're punishing Joe Burrow for getting to play with those two receivers. For the most part, we're taking it into consideration, but
It comes into
it's part of
consideration when you analyze some of like the anticipation stuff and kind of where
yeah.
they're putting the ball on the field and throwing to leverage and some of the granular stuff of the game is that's when people talk about chemistry with a quarterback is understanding where somebody is in the field, the type of routes they win on. He has supreme confidence in those guys, obviously, but some of the stuff he uncorks is purely because he knows I have dudes everywhere. And I can put it to a certain spot where I can throw it way off the sideline the way people used to do to Julio Jones and say, well, Jamar can get that. My other guys could probably not get that. So I'm going to give the guy that I'm throwing to the chance.
Why it ultimately made sense to me that they kept both of them because it is so baked into the DNA of the quarterback and the kind of offense he wants to run. All right, easy part's over. This is where I have like kind of a next tier, and I kind of reordered them and then mixed around with them. I've got about like I'm not tiering these, but I've got about like 5 or 6 guys who
Mhm.
are in this kind of 5 to 8 range, 5 to 9 range. Who I gave you I tricked you starting at 1 because I think this is actually where things get hairy. Ollie Connolly, who are you taking 5th in the quarterback draft?
I'm going to take Jayden Daniels.
Ah! Oh boy. Okay, let's go. He was 6 for me. So I had him very high as well. Okay. Is this too high?
It could be too high, but we only have one season to go off, and we're projecting the next 3 years. And no rookie has had an impact on a franchise in basically any sport like this since Magic Johnson, of changing the entire tenor of the building, making them a legitimate championship contender with a what we thought was a bare bones roster where they get Dan Quinn as the third choice hire, and hey, maybe they roll this thing a season, and maybe they decide to make it a wash. after the rookie season, try and build again. There's this stuff with, well, they've got Cliff, but the offensive line isn't very good. And he just puts it all to rest. He has one poor week to open the season where he is a gun it or check down and basically take off artist the first week. Then he completely overhauls his game and says, I'm going to be the best from the pocket quarterback we have driving the ball down the field. And I don't think I've ever seen a rookie even contemplate trying to play like that, let alone the stuff in the run game, let alone some of the stuff in terms of second reaction playmaking. And I know there's concerns about, oh, he gets sacked too much, he scrambles against pressure too much. This guy was a rookie, and I'm willing to bet that over 3 seasons he can sand off some of those edges of his game. And the stuff where it's throwing in a collapsing pocket under fire, just drilling balls down the field over and over again, that stuff feels more stable to me than worrying about him dropping his eye level against pressure every season. It took Lamar 3, 4, 5 seasons, a new coaching staff to stop dropping his eyes against pressure, and he became one of the best quarterbacks in the league and was before that anyway. So I'm willing to bet on a similar development path for Daniels.
There's a lot of things that just amazed me about him as a rookie. One of the things was that he did things in the NFL that he didn't do in college, which is insane. Right? Like, I liked him as a prospect. I was like, wow, great arm, accurate, smart, whatever. But I thought, we don't really have many examples of him making plays on the move, throwing downfield. He's a good scrambler, but is he, going to get murdered in the NFL?
Yeah.
Right? So he gets to the league, and he is a better playmaker in the NFL than he was in college. I cannot stress enough how that never happens, right? When you get you got NFL speed and you're he made NFL linebackers and defensive linemen look silly at times. And that's even getting away from his, actually greatest skill, which is he is a pocket passer, super accurate, super smart. And the other thing I would point to with him too, I don't think there's a single guy who, talking to NFL players, defensive players, his name came up constantly for me. I mean, whether it was at the Super Bowl, just this off-season conversations I've had, they were astounded by how poised he was and how unaffected he was by. And again, circumstances matter. Maybe I should have had him 5. I had him 6. Anyways, circumstances. Not even in a great situation, right? I mean, I think Cliff Kingsbury did a better job also than a lot of us expected, perhaps particularly as the season went along. But offensive line dubious, so much so that they smartly made a lot of moves to upgrade it. An okay group of pass catchers. I don't think you can say enough about how good he was last year. So I love that pick for you. All right. This is probably the first pick that I'm going to get enraged people because you know who I'm going to say. Naming him always makes people go crazy. Can you guess who that's going to be?
Is it going to be Herbs?
Yeah, it's Herb. I'm taking Herbert here. I don't feel a strong degree of conviction in it. And now that I think about it, I think Daniel, it's fair. I posted a bunch of Lad McConkey clips on the internet today or yesterday because I was just watching him pulling some clips. First of all, he's awesome.
Yeah.
That's such a good player. And a friend on Blue Sky was like, oh, now that you admit Lad McConkey's number 1, will you guys stop making excuses for Herbert? And I said, no, sir, I will not, because his number 2 is Mike Williams. And I know it drives people crazy. It feels like we always make excuses for him. And I know he was bad in the playoff game, and he absolutely deserves all the smoke for that. But he was still really good last year. He was, and it was not a good situation. The interior offensive line was absolute basura. It was not a good group of pass catchers outside of McConkey. It was a terrible run game. And I don't want to keep doing this with Justin Herbert. I don't want to. I really, I'm tired of it. I don't want to feel like I'm making excuses for him. But as analysts, our job, Ollie, is to observe reality and discuss content, right? How do you feel about the Herbert of it all?
I like Herbert like everyone. I'm probably not and never have been quite as enamored as some of you guys who get completely dunked on. I think that the skill set is so beyond belief that, if you were just asking anyone in the league we're doing a redraft of the entire league, who's going in the top 5 at quarterbacks, I think the entire league would take him in the top 5 for the physical skill set, for the mental aptitude. I do think the players was indicative of a problem he's had all his career, which is things do just snowball on him. And he can just start having bad decision after bad decision. The rhythm starts going, his mechanics start failing him. He just starts getting locked in onto 1 or 2 plays, and he really tries to force things. And I do think there's just going to be another change that has to come to his game because he's just changing staffs that he's working with and the receivers he's working with year after year after year. And he is, to me, almost as kind of a more plug and play point and shoot quarterback, like the absolute apex you could ever hope for that to be. Burrow's probably a little bit in that camp too, and you'd want maybe more of the Burrow of it, who has added some more playmaking feel than I think Herbert has. But if you look at
Agreed.
just some of the kind of the play action stuff and kind of the okay, let's hit the back foot, get the ball out figures, it's some of the best stuff in the league. Probably the best seam throw in the league right now. Has the most melodic feel, I think, in play action work, where it is just hit it and let it rip it. So yeah, just as the kind of the package of quarterback, and it's like a Jim Harbaugh, like prototypical. What does Harbaugh want? The big, strong, physical guy who can run with the ball too. I buy all the way in. I do think there's some of the unfortunately like the hot takey type side of things where yeah, in big moments there's been struggles, and there are a ton
Yeah.
of games where, particularly against good competition, bad things just snowball on him.
I agree. I think also the absence of playmaking is what keeps him firmly outside of
Mhm.
the top tier of guys that we're talking about. Um, and Daniels, who did that, frankly, right? And it's always been my frustration with Justin Herbert, who is an incredible athlete and refuses to. The playoff game, I don't think he had a single carry, which was just mind blowing to me against a Texan. They're playing the Texans right this year.
Yeah.
Texans defense, where that was their glaring weakness all year long. It was infuriating. And I have to think that's Herbert and not Roman, who's not wanting to carry the football, because it's something we've seen from him over the course of his career. It drives me freaking crazy. That said, all the stuff you said, I agree with. The talent is there. There are, like, I think about the first half against the Bengals where you were just like, you were watching it and you're thinking, like, this is one of the best quarterbacks on earth. And then, like you said, it snowballed a little bit. It's also, for me, though, a matter of the tier, because in this tier, I just had a hard time putting guys
Yeah.
above him because everybody else was flawed.
Yeah, all
And
these
you're
guys are flaws or have some kind of like glaring weakness that needs to be corrected, I feel like. So I went with CJ Stroud next.
oh, wow. Okay. Oh my
And I
God.
get it,
Way
but
higher than I am.
he's still only 24, younger than Bo Nix and Michael Penix. In 3 years, he'll still be younger than Justin Herbert is now. Everyone's all fired up by Justin Herbert. He's still going to be really young. And I understand all the stuff about last season, but I would just like to casually point out to people what a disastrous situation the guy was working in last season. The year before the rookie season, it was not an ideal environment anyway. He was so special. He covered up a lot of like stuff under the hood that was not going so well. That was, I think, exposed last season. And it's so rare. I gotta say, I admire the Texans. I think when you come out on the backside, they maybe aren't improved with what they did, but I admire a team who it's so easy to win a playoff game and say we're running it back, we trust in our guys, internal development. And they just said no, it was not good enough. Anyone associated with our offensive line or our protection plan is basically out of here. Every single coach, bar one assistant offensive line coach, gone. OC gone. And it's really easy to roll it back after winning a game and hope for the best. You trade Larry Tunsil. Like I said, the pieces aren't so strong coming into next season, but I admire them saying that was unacceptable what we did to our quarterback. Most unblocked pressures in the history of the NFL, an embarrassing number of unblocked pressures. Most unblocked pressures in the history of the NFL against 4 rushes. Impossible to do. Really hard to do. You got 5 guys. They got 4. Um, Third worst quick pressure rate in the NFL. So the guy was working in an abomination of a situation, injuries all over the place in the receiving core, linemen changing in and out. Really, really, really poor coaching job. One of the worst coaching jobs we've had in a long time, meaning everyone in the staff on that side of the ball. And still, I know a lot of it was bad, but there was an awful lot of good in there. Some of the throws he makes, particularly in rhythm to every level of the field, are next level, out of this world, Burrow-esque stuff, Mahomes-esque stuff. There's more playmaking, I think, to tap into in the game. We saw him scramble more last season out of sheer desperation. I think if you can kind of find a balance as the pieces around him get better, we can see him return to that rookie season and then some. But I'm just a huge, huge fan and believer in his game. I just thought he was completely kneecapped by what happened to him last year.
I do like that they recognized that they had to change the staff. I don't like that they didn't upgrade the players blocking for him. So I don't know how that's going to work out. I think with him, my struggle is, um, I felt like, and this was really made clear to me on Christmas Day watching that game while I was working. Uh, the pressure led to him developing some bad habits and he was seeing ghosts, and it also led him to throwing like inaccurate, like you alluded to this, like he was so good as a rookie throwing those outbreakers, and as the season went on he just started spraying them Ollie, and it was just like weird to
Yeah,
watch.
he
And
had a ton of just weird brain farts the entire
yeah,
season, and I do think, like you said, it's seeing ghosts. I think he's just thinking, "I'm gonna get rocked every
yeah,
single time in 2 seconds." Even you go and look at the Chiefs game, the Chargers game, they're keeping 7 and 8 guys in to protect. They still allow unblocked rushes with I mean, what is a guy to do other than scan everywhere in 2 seconds and go, "Where am I gonna get hurt? This is really gonna hurt when these guys hit me so hard. I gotta just try and get rid of the ball." And if it wasn't to Collins, and even when it was to Collins, frankly, there was some really strange, odd decisions. But I'm giving him a complete mulligan
yeah,
based on the situation he was in. I mean, if you watch the end of the drive, end of the half drive, sorry, against the Chargers, where you get the 30-yard shot play, which is again another unblocked protection. Those guys couldn't do anything. He just runs around, hits an absolute dime across the body, 30 yards down the field. Then he comes back in rhythm, in stride, 5-step drop. Nico Collins, 25 yards, closes it out, nails a slant route to Nico Collins, touchdown. It's as good as you can play quarterback. It's everything we ask of these guys, right? Well, can you create a little bit? Can you play in rhythm? Can you throw to different coverages? It's as good as it gets. And I think that we've seen the consistency before in the rookie season. It was just taken out of his hands by the line he was playing behind.
first in QBR throwing on design rollouts last year. So when he knew he wasn't going to get smashed in the face, you saw some really beautiful throws. Yeah, I think it's really important for him that he finished strong. It was such a brutal season, and some of the island games, including Christmas, were ones where he played really badly. But at the end, um, sort of the anti-Herbert in a way, like he even though they lost and they got you saw probably his best play in the postseason, which is going to be really significant headed into next year. 30th in DVOA though last year, but again, like we are. This is a context pick. Okay, I'm at 8, so we're down to 8. Yes, and I was deciding between 3 guys here for 8, 9, 10. And I am going to take Dakota Rain Prescott at 8.
Ooh.
This is a bounce back bet. Last year was bad. It was, I think, kind of how do I put it? You talking about the snowball. Like, I feel like a lot of things went wrong very quickly. And then, of course, he was hurt and didn't play for most of the season. We are only 2 years removed from him being one of the 2 best quarterbacks in the NFL, right? So I think at this point, I'm willing to accept the body of work is strong enough that and at his age, his style of play, I feel like lends itself well to him having a bounce back year.
I agree with that. I'm really concerned about the ecosystem he's going to be playing in. But if we can just isolate Dak away from that ecosystem, I love Dak Prescott. I've said many times on many shows, I think he's the closest thing we have to Peyton Manning right now in the league. I get roasted for that every time, but I think it's true in terms of the pre-snap work, his marshaling of the offense, him setting and resetting everything all on his own. I do think last season, for as much as I like him, I love the way he plays the game. And so I get all excited and kind of the details. And okay, he's doing this pre-snap. He understands everything that's happening before everyone else in the field at a supercomputer level. I get all that. Sometimes you just got to put the ball A to B, and he's not doing it as consistently enough anymore as I would like. It's been 2 out of the last 3 seasons now. He's had more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws. And there's just only so much you can kind of chess match your way through the season if you're not playing at the Joe Burrow level every single season. That's my concern for him moving forward.
2 out of the last 3, so you're thinking this last half season and then 2022, but 2023
was everything I ever hoped for. Yeah.
was incredible.
Beautiful. Yeah.
I'm actually more confident than you in the ecosystem this season, but I'll save that for we'll see if they make my top 10 offenses. I think they might, honestly. Sounds like we disagree here though, but like I am optimistic about some of the things that they've done. Did you have Dak? You had Dak much lower on your list?
Not much slower. No. I always have a Dak tax where I bump him up in anything to do with quarterbacks, but you had him higher than even I had.
Okay. So I'm guessing whoever you're going to take next at 9, you had higher than Dak.
I had higher than Dak, yeah.
Okay.
I had Jordan Love.
Okay. He's not that far down for me.
Partly
I wanted him. So I didn't want to reach.
It is partly a heart pick for me. I think he's the best show going in football. I think he's the most entertaining quarterback to watch in the league right now. There's some real unhinged Matthew Stafford type stuff in there without some of the Stafford precision at times.
Yeah.
I thought he had, if you just put a cut up of what are the 5 best throws of the season last season, he's probably stealing 4 of the 5 spots all on his own. There's actually 2, I think, in the Cardinals game alone that he could take. He's got the Rams one, he rips it over basically quarters coverage, 2 deep safeties. He outthrows the coverage by like 10 yards. It's one of the most wildest throws you'll ever see. I do think he's really veering into, and the bad parts of Josh Allen a couple of seasons ago, where it's true arm arrogance now, where he has just given up any hope of where his feet are supposed to be, how he's supposed to navigate the pocket. And it's such arm arrogance to a point where defensive coaches have caught up with him now with how he wants to play, how he wants to attack the field. I thought one of the most fascinating games last season of a quarterback versus DC or defensive play caller was them versus Houston, when D'Amico really sensed early that I know what this guy wants to do. I know that he is unhinged at this moment in time and he wants to let it rip all over the field. And they built their defensive plan in a way to say, go on then, try and beat us with the arm. See if you can beat us in coverage. And he just lost his mind, and they allowed him to say, hit some 15, 18-yard shots. You'll give us a turnover to win the game. And he essentially did. It was a one-score game. He threw a turnover. So I have some concerns, but he's always been a guy where he has a maniacal work ethic, maniacal. And I think he really wants to be one of the greats. And there's still issues with his game, but every year I see little developments, little improvements in there that I just think he's going to continue to improve.
He reminds me so much of Matthew Stafford at certain points in his career. He's a really interesting one statistically, because as I was kind of digging into some of the rankings, he comes out really high this season, right? Like, so 4th in DVOA, 5th in QBR, 1st in FTN's explosive play rate. He had the 2nd lowest pressure to sack rate in football. He also, his receivers had the highest drop rate of any team, which is something, you got to take into consideration. But I think some of that is covers up the streakiness a little bit. Like, in a game from him, you would see just one of the worst halves of football, and then in the second half, you'd come back and be awesome. And then so over the season, that kind of smooths out a little bit. Again, very Stafford-like, to be honest, especially younger Stafford. So I think the stats both capture what makes him amazing and his talent and what he's capable of, and there's a reason why they're so high, but they also, I think, belie situations in which he made things worse for the offense. A lot of those interceptions came when he was pressured, bad decisions. You alluded to this. So I think I'm still such a believer in him and his talent. And I think, like you said, there's just throws on tape that are as good as any you'll see in the entire NFL. I think you just have to iron out some of those decisions. You have to get better consistency from him. And I think, like, between him and LaFleur, like, they're this season, it felt like at first, oh my gosh, Matt LaFleur finally has a quarterback who's willing to run his offense, right? He's gotten rid of Aaron Rodgers. He's got a guy who's gonna be cool with all the motions, and he's gonna get guys open for him over the middle field. He's gonna throw the football. I think there needs to be like a little bit of an evolution in this relationship, because I think this season at times it felt like it wasn't gelling quite the way it was early on.
Yeah, and Love isn't a huge scrambling guy, and so I think they should look at getting into some more of the empty stuff. Go and look at what Cliff did with Jayden, where
Yeah.
it's up tempo, it's no huddle. We're playing empty more than anyone in the league. We're playing empty with the 6th lineman, so we know that we're settled in pass pro. We let our guy go cook. You don't see many people do that. So I do think there needs to be a shifting what they're running, where if you can just let him go and be point guard a little bit and kind of inoculate yourself from some of the vomit style turnovers that he has, where you can maybe steal 2 or 3 reps in the game of just letting him play dink and dunk football. Where I think what happened last season is they're running still a ton of turn the back play action. They had a 59% pressure rate last season on turn the back play action. That is really, really high. And his best trait is not kind of hitting the back foot and scanning and resetting and going again. He hits it and he wants to sling it, and he's trying to bomb it down the field. So he's doing that under a ton of pressure. So I think they got to reduce the amount of what they're running to maximize that when they do run a lot of turn the back play action, he's willing to like acquiesce to it and take what's open rather than be hunting big plays all the time. And if they can get him more spread and say, hey, you're Peyton Manning for us, you're Aaron Rodgers for us, go and have some of the controls of the offense, I think he would actually settle down a bit more.
He's Matthew Stafford, not Jared Goff.
Yep.
Is right? You
Yep.
think about the Rams evolution, not saying that it has to be exactly like the Rams offense when he joined and Sean McVay evolved the offense to accommodate what Matthew Stafford did, but I could not agree more with what you're saying. And I do think you have to accept he is never going to be a scrambler. I mean, it was another one that kind of drove me crazy at points last season because defenses would play like cover 2 man against him and he just wouldn't take off if he saw grass. But at a certain point, and Herbert, it's kind of similar. Herbert's probably a better athlete, but just are who you are. Dak's the same way. There's just certain quarterbacks who they're not statues, but it's never going to be a part of their game. And it might be the case with Love. Although he did tell me at the Super Bowl that he is going to scramble more. So
Oh, good.
I asked him, I was like, hey, why aren't you running more? Okay. We're at 10. Probably got to move a little faster. This is where I'm going to take Jalen Hurts. I'm taking him over Matthew Stafford because of the 3-year timeline. If this was a 1-year deal, I would probably take Matthew Stafford here. I think this is a completely fair spot to take Jalen Hurts, who is a very good quarterback who has been proven to be exceptional when it matters the most. Which, let's just start there, Ollie.
Yep.
How wild is it that this guy has played all of the best games of his career in championships and Super Bowls?
Yeah. Against Steve Spagnuolo, no less, which even the greatest had a tough role with. He's a defensive stop away from being a 2-time Super Bowl MVP, essentially. Is why with me, it's unbelievable. I love Jalen Hurts. I know there's some knocks in the game. I thought that last season that offense, when it felt kind of stilted, particularly in the year, had less to do with him and more just the design of the offense. There was just no rhythm to everything they were trying to do. Everything was so siloed in what they were running as an offense. It really slimmed it down. By the second part of the season, to me, he's one of just the best pure deep throw guys we have in the league. Throwing to leverage, throwing to spots in the field, throwing to landmarks. There are some issues with the game. I think some of the quick game stuff, some of the rhythm stuff is on him. I thought it was more on him in previous years, frankly, than it was last season. And I just don't know if that's something that he will discover magically over time. And over a 3-year timeline, if there's some fading of the athleticism, maybe that would be a concern. But I just think that if you're playing in this kind of smash mouth spread era of football that everyone's trying to do right now with like a downhill running quarterback and some vertical shots in the game, he's kind of the prototype dropped in that's the quarterback you want.
Also like saved his best rushing performance at the end of the year. I was like, who is this guy? Like like all season long, I'm like, oh, he's like moving kind of slow. It's a bad thing when he tries to turn the corner, and he like turned it on in the Super Bowl as a runner. That was like the most surprising thing to me about the Super Bowl. But yeah, to your points, True Media has this precise pass rate metric I was looking at. He was second precise pass rate over 15 yards. If you have a quarterback who is a dual threat, who throws an accurate deep ball, you can build and you know, have an all-star team, but you could absolutely build the best offense in football out of that. And I think his skill set, you know, I think with these quarterbacks now, especially once you get outside that top 4 group that we agreed on, I just ask myself, do they do something special? Is there something they do at a better rate or a top 3 rate or whatever? And I think that's it for him. Like, he throws an unbelievably accurate deep ball, and it's undeniable. Did you have him around this range?
Yeah, I had him around this range.
Okay. Who you're at 11?
Okay, I'm going to take Drake Maye.
Stop it.
I'm going to take Drake Maye. This is a 3-year timeline, Mina. We're not just going off last season, a 3-year timeline. I think Drake Maye is special. I think he's going to prove to be special. I think this season could be another up and down one. I think if we reflect on this draft board in 2-3 years time, we go back and pull up the social media posts of who drafted what, you're going to think I had tremendous value on this pick. You said, what is the special trait? He has special arm talent, whatever the platform, however muddy the pocket, he can rip it to anywhere on the field. Special as a runner, I think, on less so design carries, more creativity than I thought he would have in the league. I think he's a truly special one.
Those two things you pointed out are reflected in Drake Maye's stats. Like, a lot of this, all the, you know, him and Williams' rankings are obviously dismal overall. Drake Maye faced the most quick pressure of any quarterback in football this year. Quick pressure is the NGS stat, 2.5 seconds or less, the highest rate. And when pressured, this one blew my mind. He had the lowest off-target rate in the NFL, ahead of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes throwing the ball. He was 4th in completion percentage over expected. The running, again, pound for pound on the efficiency he had running, the explosiveness was very high. Another NGS stat, he ranked first amongst all quarterbacks in missed tackle rate. So, yeah, just some when you dig into the stats a little bit, you start seeing some of the things that made him special, things that were reflected on the field. He was in the worst situation of any quarterback in football last year. I feel
Yeah,
comfortable planting my flag and saying that, from everything, play calling to offensive line to weapons, no one had it worse than Drake Maye. The fact that you still saw these flashes of brilliance and then some of these capabilities is very exciting if you're a Patriots fan. Is it so exciting I would put him above some of the other guys? Yeah, I'm a little bit nervous about that, but I
it's a
love it for
3-year
you. It's like
timeline.
a planting your flag
It's a
pick. It's a
3-year
great one.
timeline. I thought he was special coming out. I saw everything that I thought it would look like in year one, including the fact that it was a disaster around him. The head coach is kind of all over the place in the building. People don't know what's going on. You got to throw that into the mix too, that it's kind of a strange working environment in your first season. I saw everything that I was expecting to see over probably the first 2-3 seasons happened almost immediately. And there's plenty of downsides. Some of the mechanical stuff is an absolute mess, but the underlying features, the deep ball, the throwing with anticipation, being willing to stand in and take a huge shot to try and deliver an accurate ball. And he's getting lit up, as you mentioned, the entire time. And he didn't quite have the same CJ Stroud level of like breakdown brain farts when he's getting hit at a very similar level. Just the Bills game alone, if you just isolate, let's just go game by game with these guys. Who do you believe in for the next 3 years? I give you the Bills game. You'd
Bills
probably
game,
take him in
yeah.
the top 10.
Yeah, the Bills game, I would recommend people, Patriots fans, if you want to get excited about Drake Maye, watching that. And then it kind of got memory hold. It must have been on a 10 a.m. So I can't remember exactly. I love it. I'm very excited about Drake Maye. Okay, I'm going to take Matthew Stafford at 12. And this is predicated on my belief that he does not retire after this season. That's really the question, right, with Stafford, right? Is how much longer is he going to play? He's doing 1-year deals. I think he keeps playing another. So I'm taking him for at least 2 out of 3 of these years. Before we move on, do you think if you knew Matthew Stafford was going to play 3 more years, would you have him here, or the signs of declining play that concern you? What are your thoughts?
There are some signs of decline, I think, in pure straight drop back situations. I know there was a mess along the offensive line last season. He wasn't quite the same guy in terms of decisions last season. I would still take him as like the 8th best quarterback in the league if I knew that he was going to play for 3 seasons. He still can sling it like nobody else. Again, you mentioned like, let's get a couple of the best throws in the league. There's one he has against the Cardinals. Again, everyone was making unbelievable throws against the Cardinals. They were doing all this bonkers, crazy stuff with their rotations. You had to find these strange throwing windows. He has some of the most outrageous throws all of last season. And even if you just dig into like, well, they had all this pressure and he's getting hit all the time. He had one of the lowest like quarterback responsibility for pressure rates last season. He understood the assignment and he didn't want to get hit, I'm guessing, as well. So like Kirk Cousins and guys like that are in that group too. But he was still driving the ball down the field while not being responsible for the pressure. So he still makes as many magical Matthew Stafford throws as you would hope to see.
Oh, yeah, I mentioned that Hurts was second in the precise pass rate over 15 yards. Stafford was first. And the Vikings game, I would submit as, and some of the Seahawks. I mean, they're just, if you were to put together a highlight reel of the top 20 throws in the NFL season, he would have at least like 3 or 4 of them in my mind. Okay, you're up at 13.
I'm taking Jared Goff.
I have Jared Goff at 13 too.
Oh,
okay.
let's go. And
I
I feel like I find myself being one of the chief Goff defenders around. I think people just get kind of bored of the style of it all, and I find the style sensational. It is probably the closest thing we have to someone trying to play like Tom Brady. Some of just the stance and some of the way you can do the drop, hit, slip throws are completely Brady-esque. I feel like he's really studied him. He has some of the most outrageous stats on 3rd and medium and 3rd and long last season. And I get people can say the environment, Ben Johnson, the weapons. The offensive line was not as good last season as it's been in previous years. He was slightly better, though not great, when pressured last season than he's been in previous seasons. Slightly more aggressive last season than he's been in previous seasons. And just 3rd and 6, and it's a throw to make the playoffs. It's a throw for my life. I have such great faith that he's going to put the ball where we've designed the ball to go to, rather than trying to be a freelance artist who submarines the entire offense.
I just love how fearless he is. Just to throw out something, I think maybe with him, it's one thing to say, okay, yeah, I can turn my back to the defense, then turn around and gun it, in a tight window in the middle of the field, 20 yards downfield, if I know Amon-Ra St. Brown is running the dig. It's another to execute it at the level that Jared Goff consistently did. Sometimes taking hits too, by the way, which is another part of his game that I feel like it's underappreciated how freaking tough he is. Um, he is the perfect quarterback for that offense. We're gonna get to Caleb Williams at some point, and I have concerns and questions
Yeah.
and optimism, but also like he's not Jared Goff, right? Like Jared Goff was just perfect for this. But I also think he tend to go to the conversation about like, does this quarterback do anything? Yes, he is the best at doing that thing, the
Yeah.
play action shot player in the middle of the field. Like, and I think that offense does not go the way it goes without Jared Goff. You can argue the reverse that Jared Goff doesn't have this. I think if you took him out of the Lions and you put him somewhere else, his ranking would drop, which is why he's 13 and not in the top 10. But it is a mutually beneficial relationship. I'm at 14, and I am going to. This one might surprise you because I am taking him over the Justin Herbert of the Southeast. I'm taking Baker Mayfield here
Ooh.
over. You know what I'm talking about. Um, Baker was really good last year, man.
Baker was really good. Really good. Zin
Uh,
Baker was really good. Non-Zin Baker, some concerns, but when he was on the Zin, he was ripping.
Another guy who you can't ignore the context, you can't ignore the environment, the offensive line. Liam Cohen, I thought was absolutely fantastic last season. It's a whole separate conversation, but I don't think Baker was a win with quarterback entirely. I think there were certainly moments, and there was some streakiness here and there where he was a win because of quarterback. I was very impressed by his accuracy, throwing on the move. They're all the Baker things we associate with his game. He's got a big arm. He's tough. He relishes contact in a discomforting way. But you know, I thought he I don't think it was like that was kind of offense where you could put in any quarterback and it would have been executed to the same degree that he did last season. And by the way, now we're coming off of like, okay, this dude hasn't built an NFL career at some point. This isn't like a flash in the pan where like, oh, he was so awful in the past. Like, he's certainly had his ups and downs over the course of his career, but I do think he is evidence of a guy who has actually gotten better as the years got on, and that makes me confident in him moving forward.
Yeah, I thought the offense was the best designed offense in the NFL, I thought, last season. So there's a
Mm.
lot of credit goes into Liam Cohen for that last year. The thing with Baker still is, we talked about snowballing with some of these guys earlier. He just
Turnovers.
kills drives on his
Yeah.
own, whether it's the fumbles, the dumb interceptions, whatever it is. But then he also puts the cape on, and when it's a bad situation, go make plays, which is what gives him the bravado to say, I can fit the ball in that window. And then he misses it. The major change in his game last season was just how quick he was getting rid of the ball when he was targeting the middle of the field. He used to be hold it, hold it,
Yeah.
hold it, kind of do these stutter steps, and he looked concerned or panicked or didn't know what was happening. Last season, average time to throw on intermediate throws was 2.9 seconds, as quick as you will see for a 10-plus yard throw. He was really just trusting, understanding, and ripping it.
This is one thing that really alarmed me about him. Not alarmed me, but like why I can't have him any higher is he was throwing the ball at the fastest rate of his career, but he ranked 33rd in pressure to sack rate. Usually those two things don't go hand in hand. So he still took a lot of really dumb sacks, frankly. And he still put the ball in harm's way a bit. And I think those are things that are sticky with him. So I think he has a little bit of an inflated sense of his own athleticism.
I think Baker's a guy who, over the course of his career, will kind of win a game in the season you weren't expected to win to get you to the playoffs, and he'll throw the playoff game away for you. That's kind of, I think, where I'm at with him.
Okay, 15 is who do you have at 15?
15, I have, look at my list. I have Brock Purdy.
Okay, he's right here for me, right behind another person, but I see the case.
There's a case. Even I'm not as confident in the case as I probably should be, having just selected him. I really enjoyed last season them saying it's more on your shoulders than it's been in the past. It was not the classic Shanahan bump with
Yeah.
the quarterback. They went full air Purdy, and it's like, we are slinging this thing all around. We are throwing on early downs. We are playing more spread sets. Let this guy go cook. And I thought he delivered. And I know he's got this rap as being kind of the point guard plus, right? There's like a little bit of off script playmaking in there when it's needed the most. Him kind of truly quarterbacking the system last year when there was a bunch put on his plate, particularly on early downs, took him, I thought, to a different level than I thought he was ever going to get to.
So I guess this is a point we should acknowledge. Brock Purdy just signed a multi-year contract extension with the San Francisco 49ers. Came in at 53 million APY, which is exactly on par with Tua and Jared Goff, which feels right to me. I haven't talked about the show. Yeah, that's about right for him. We have not mentioned Tua, right? We mentioned Jared Goff, but I do think he's in this tier. I thought last season was you alluded to this, like they had the 10th highest pass rate over expectation in football last season. He was constantly being it was like a Jenga tower, and they were just constantly taking out pieces of the offense, and he wasn't perfect by any means, but I thought delivered at a level that, given those circumstances, should give you hope in the future if they're able to replace them. I have major questions about that offensive line that make me a little bit nervous about that, but that's not what we're discussing here. Uh, Again, with him, it's the scrambling ability, the playmaking. He throws the ball downfield better than a lot of the Shanahan quarterbacks that preceded him. So I'm totally comfortable with that contract, and I am comfortable with ranking him here. Okay, I'm doing audible. So that was 15. We're at the halfway point. I was going to do Southeast Herbert, who I talked about, but I'm going to replace him, and I'm taking Geno here. F it. I can't put Geno in the second half.
Gino's the best. What is that to say? He's the most aggressive quarterback in the league. He never gets sacked, particularly in quick game. No one can get to him quick enough. He just rips the ball down the fields. Second best quarterback in the league last year on EPA per play on 3-step drops. When it's rhythm and he can just drop and rock with it, he's tremendous. And the idea that the Raiders fans you were saying at the top might be somewhat disappointed, but I don't get that. You got yourselves what I think is one of the 10 best starters in the league over the last
Yeah.
couple of seasons, and to go and just get that guy for nothing is sensational.
So if we were doing 1 year, I would have him higher. This is a
Yep.
3-year timeline. He is an older quarterback. And he's had a few injuries here and there. But yeah, I mean, I've mentioned this a million times, Raiders fans, but he to me is one where you really have to watch the tape. It was funny when the Steelers put out like DK Metcalf highlights. Everybody was like, "Good Lord, Geno Smith! Oh my God!" Like half these, like some of the best throws I've ever seen. Just unbelievably accurate. Second highest on target rate behind Joe Burrow last season. Consistently ranks near the top of the NFL in completion percentage over expected. Accurate throwing downfield. Accurate, very tricky circumstances to say the least. I mean, I mentioned that Drake Maye faced the highest quick pressure rate. Geno Smith was right behind him. The biggest ding on him is interception rate when pressured, 36 in the NFL last year. He made some really bad choices. And I think just whether or not he can cut down on those, and whether or not they can build this like run first play action offense or whatever they're going to do in Vegas, I think it's going to go a long way towards whether or not they can limit those negative plays. But just in a vacuum, he is one of the best pure throwers of football we have in the NFL right now.
Yeah, the Vegas link up, him with Chip, is really confusing to me individually. Starting goals by Geno Smith, love that. OC, Chip Kelly, love that. Together, very, very peculiar pairing. But in a vacuum, it's just a player like, let's go and build whatever offense we want to run in the entire NFL. Geno is near the top of the list. You mentioned it in terms of throws to every area of the field, the accuracy, the timing, everything is available with Geno.
All right, let's take a quick break, come back, and let's see if the guy that I've been talking around and alluding comes up next at pick 17. All right, we are back. We are in the second half of this quarterback draft. Who do you think is the angriest fan base right now?
Either the Jags or the Cardinals, probably.
So who are you going to take?
I'll take Kyler Murray.
Okay, the guy I'm talking about keeps dropping. I had Kyler Murray in this range as well. Such a weird season, right?
Yeah,
Like,
not how I would even pictured an excellent Kyler Murray season. It's like you go back and look at the figures and go, well, that was a really good season. But when I'm watching it, it's like I never thought coming into the league that would be how Kyler would play one of his best years. I thought it'd be way more vertical shots all over the place, him running around absolute mayhem, but it's so magic and so special to see. Whereas this was so designed and like orchestrated. I thought what Petzing built with the offense was really fascinating and interesting, kind of a example of where the league is going. I did not think that Kyler Murray would be the guy you'd plug into that. I thought you'd wind up with a Purdy or a Goff or someone like that, and that's the system you would run. It's like you got given this kind of magic trick that bails you out of plays, and Kyler just kind of subsumed himself to the offense in a way that I wasn't expecting.
9th overall in QBR, 31st on throws over 21 yards. Kind of captures what you're talking about. Very good on designed rollouts, less so on scrambling. It was weird. And you saw flashes of the arm talent and, when he did, there were some moments where he did scramble and you were reminded, oh, this is one of the most lethal weapons on earth. But there was no consistency to it. The way I would describe his season is just very streaky, Ollie.
Yep.
And I don't know what to put it on. I mean, I guess that's kind of the story of his career in some ways. Some of it I would put on like the fact that they took a wide receiver 4th overall, who I thought was unbelievable, and he also ended up being incredibly streaky and kind of unprepared for. It was bizarre. Although Marvin Harrison Jr. is jacked now. I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, is he really? That's great.
What like, am I over attributing some of the streakiness to that relationship? Because it was one of the strangest things. I think it was like
It
one of the
was
strangest subplots of the NFL season.
strange in I think the first month of the season, because they had this thing where they're not targeting him, then he locks in on him, and I do think, as I said, by again in the middle of the year, Kyler just turned himself over to whatever the offense asked me to run is what I will run, and I thought he ran one of the most efficient passing games in the league last season. It's just not what you would expect of Kyler. You would almost expect there to be more chaos involved, but he was streaky, playing to the structure of the offense, which I haven't seen before. So,
Yeah.
and he just kind of said, McBride's the guy. I'm throwing to McBride. If he's not there, he's one of the quickest 1 goes to 2 throwers in the league. It's so explosive. He's so twitched up in everything he does. And I'm just not sure if, unless Marvin Harrison is going to be a true like jump ball go threat down the field, and that's how they get some of the verticality into the offense, whether that's just a natural fit with how he's played his best football so far.
18. I'm going to stop the slide. I'm taking Trevor Lawrence here. So we're not supposed to consider context, but I do think this is a pick that's going to age well because his context is going to so dramatically improve this season. And so like I'll look smart for the value, well, or we'll look stupid for letting him slide because I think he's going to ball out this year. I just was really unpersuaded by him when he played last season, Ollie, and it's been that way for me. He's like, you're talking about how like you're a little bit lower on Herbert than, so Herbert and Lawrence, I view them, it's funny because they kind of look alike, sort of. They're kind of twin flames of the ball knowers, film watchers.
Yeah.
Love, and Lawrence is the one for me where I'm like, oh man, I don't know, like there's just games where decision making, some strange bouts of inaccuracy, I just don't see it. But then there are moments where you see like, oh my god, that's like the most beautiful bender I've seen, like a quarterback throw all year. I mean, not all, but I'm being a little bit hyperbolic. But in any case, I am not selling on him, but I have some pretty serious questions. Where are you at with Trevor Lawrence?
I feel like I've just had my heart burned by him too many times now. There just is not enough precision to his game, not enough consistency to his game. I don't know. I mentioned with Jordan Love, I don't know if he's obsessed with being great. And I think that's a real problem. I think you see it in the erraticism in the pocket, in the unwillingness to embrace fresh ideas in the offense, and just kind of the nothing is sharp enough in what he does. And the highlights are, you mentioned, sensational. They're off the charts. And even earlier in his career, my comp with him was always Matt Ryan, which is a strange one because Matt Ryan was not like a power thrower, but a lot of what he would do and how he would manipulate and move safeties were moves stolen straight out of Matt Ryan's playbook, where it's more shoulders than eyes, and I'm going to twist this way, get you to bait, and I'm going to rip it past your ear hole. All that stuff has vanished. It is all gone away. And I don't know if he was just like morose about the Doug Peterson thing and the boss doesn't want to be there. I don't want to be here. And I love the fit with Liam Cohen, and you just get to walk to work with Travis Hunter and Bryce Thomas Jr. You should probably have a good season. But there's just so much bad football on tape so consistently now that I just been burned too often by him.
However, 18, we feel good about.
Feel good about that, yeah.
Yeah, okay. This is now it's getting real hairy. This is where rankings are all over the place, tough decisions. we're still in the range where there's hope and promise, and so we're not in the real dark basement of the rankings, but this is where it gets a little tough. So we're at 19. It's you.
I'm gonna take Bo Nix.
Okay. He's in my little tier here. So
Okay. I don't feel so bad now. And I was not in any way a believer when he was coming out of college. And I thought this marriage with Sean Payton was going to be an abject disaster, basically from week one. And it was pretty rough, the early goings, but the progression he showed during that rookie season, the amount that was on his plate, it is by far the most complex game management system for quarterback in the league, with how Sean Payton kind of builds the week, builds the plan. There is so much for a rookie to take on board, and they did kind of strip things back in the middle run of the season and kind of tack stuff back on as they got further along in the year. But he was just so far beyond my wildest imagination of the rookie season of Bo Nix, where I thought it would be all and bubble screens and let's kind of cheat through the season with him. And instead, he is stood in there, dicing people up, all out pressure looks, deep shots down the field, seam balls, the digs, obviously, with Sean Payton, every other plays some kind of dig route. I just thought from week 8 onwards, I just couldn't believe the player I was watching from the guy I'd evaluated in college.
part of the reason why I think Broncos fans are right to be optimistic can kind of continue on something we've talked about. He has tools you can build an offense around, and I think that was very much on display, especially if you have an offensive play caller as brilliant as Sean Payton, who leaned into the things that he did well. You talked about some of them, throwing on the move. Some of that again is quarterback, cut the field in half and all of that, but he's also just very good at throwing on the move. He was good at throwing on the move at Oregon. It's, to me, where you saw the best downfield throws from him for the most part. I thought sack evasion, he played behind one of the best offensive lines in football. That certainly helped. He's an interesting one too, because he played behind a very good offensive line, but not with a particularly great group of skill players. So just sort of, and the run game was very mid at best. But I think that those things aren't going to go away, right? So whatever you think of him in terms of his ceiling, there's always going to be kind of a floor with him. That was sort of my takeaway from his rookie season. Oh, his floor is maybe higher than people thought. I still have questions about the ceiling. I think just throwing downfield in particular, a lot of inconsistency there. Ended up bottom 5 in most metrics, throwing past 10 yards, success rate, etc. But I do think that, and some of that again had to do with the pass game. There were drops and stuff. There's enough there for you to feel pretty optimistic about where things are headed. I had Caleb Williams over him, though, who I'm going to take at 20.
And is that a bet on Ben Johnson?
Ceiling and flashes. Statistically was awful last year. No need to get into it. It's just horrible. And there was but there were enough games that they lost where I saw enough out of him to feel optimistic about, and obviously his context is about to dramatically improve as well, but trying to separate from that, I think I honestly, I know he just went, there was just the Seth Wickersham story about how he had, disastrous rookie season, nobody was helping him and whatever. I think we sometimes talk about rookie quarterbacks and whether these disastrous rookie seasons can ruin them or whatnot. I think he showed a ton of adversity or ability to overcome adversity despite being conspired against by his coaches and teammates, maybe. I there were certain games, I think about the games that they lost, obviously the Commanders game, the Vikings game, some of that were, I was watching him and I thought man, you could see why this guy was drafted number 1 overall. He has the arm talent, he has the intelligence, he has the playmaking. So yeah, I feel pretty good about actually getting him here, given that this is a 3-year timeline and that obviously things will improve.
Yeah, it's amazing value by next season. He'll probably wind up being in the top 10 again, and we'll be like, oh, Caleb Williams has arrived, and this is the play we want him to be. I have some reservations about the marriage with the coach, but just
I alluded to that right earlier.
Just isolating it to Caleb, there was a lot of just like really bizarre stuff on the film that had absolutely nothing to do with him. I'm watching film with the coach as my offensive line hate me, which it seems like they did. If you watch the New England game, he's getting crushed over and over again. No one even goes to help him up. The Patriots have to help the quarterback up of the opposing team because he's getting crushed and no one cares. His receivers walking off the field in the middle of a play against Arizona as he's trying to scramble around and create something. It's just the most toxic environment ever imaginable. And I do think some of the time to throw stuff and the concerns we have, does he hold the ball too long? Does he actually have special elusivity and speed in the NFL if he wants to play that kind of off-script style? I think all that stuff is really fair and valid. There were plenty of times where he could have just let it fly, and he just chose not to. And maybe if he's with Ben Johnson, that can change. I think that's just kind of who he wants to be and who he is, and he's always chasing the next bigger play. And I just,
Yeah.
when I saw it live in the league, he just didn't look like he had different movement skills the way he did in college, where he could just apparate in and out of pressure, find spots in the field, and you just don't know how he got there. That he just didn't look fast in the league
Yeah.
to be able to avoid the rush.
It's an interesting point because I was talking about how Jayden Daniels, the speed did translate, and I did feel the same way with Williams although there were games where he showed a willingness to scramble up the middle that I thought, I can't remember which games, where I thought, oh my God, okay, there it is. Like because you're right, he is not the kind of runner who can escape out the back the way he
Yep.
did in college. But if he can consistently learn to climb the pocket, he is absolutely athletic enough to burrow his way through a defense. That's just what we need from him
Yep.
as a runner.
But to
Throwing on the
run
move,
the
though. Throwing
to
on the
run
move, you saw it. You saw some of those plays throwing when he escaped. I was like, the
he's
arm talent.
already one of the 5 best throw on the move guys in the league. The accuracy is better on the move than it is with a planted base. It's unlike anything you'll see with a player in
Yeah.
the league, which I think is why he wants to get around and move and create. To be the guy who climbs through the pocket, and that's how you kind of run in the league, you have to be a guy who relentlessly gets the ball out in rhythm, because that's how people are teeing off to attack you, which leaves the
Yeah.
space to go and climb through. And he would just have to dedicate himself so much to accepting, I'm going to be the greatest version of Jared Goff the league has ever seen, where you get Jared Goff with the playmaking creativity. Just the way the film we've seen going back to USC, I'm not sure if that's the guy that he envisions himself being in the league.
Certainly the investment in the interior offensive line will help in that regard, though. So I do like the way that they have approached rebuilding this thing. All right, 21. Who you got?
I got Bryce Young.
Okay, he's in this range for me as well.
You talked about resilience. The mental resiliency of Bryce Young is off the charts. The toughness he showed last season, and it's kind of concerning because you do get to still see how small he is compared to everyone else in the league. He got rocked, I think. Other than Kyler got popped by one with the Jets in a game, it was the biggest hit I saw all season. Bryce absorbed maybe 6 or 7 of the biggest shots any quarterback took last season, and still stood in. And he's kind of still doing the point guardy stuff we expected of Bryce, but there are just so many outrageous throws down the field, big time throw rate over 20 yards or more, better than Josh Allen, better than Lamar Jackson, better than Joe Burrow, second in adjusted completion percentage on deep targets. He just was unbelievable once he got back in the lineup last year.
From week 10 on, 12 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, 12th in QBR, 7th in completion percentage over expected. I didn't grab drop rate, but it felt like half of his third down throws were dropped. I talked about this when they drafted Ted McMillan, which I loved. Yeah, I'm excited. I am optimistic. I think just, God, the mental side of things, to get benched the way he did so publicly, come back, play the way he did in those circumstances, in clutch moments, on game-winning drives, on comebacks. There are physical limitations that were absolutely obvious in the field and will ultimately probably cap his ceiling in the NFL. But holy smokes, I don't think you could ask for more in the way of leadership and character, football character. And it translated. We're not just like babying him. We're not like, oh, good, Bryce Young. You really no, like he played well. You can win with Bryce Young. I really believe that. So yeah, he's in this range for me. Okay. 22. I'm going to take Sam Darnold here.
Make your case.
The reason I am not taking, if you're a Dolphins fan, you're listening to this, it's the 3-year timeline. Sorry. If it was 1 year, I would have taken your guy a while ago. I'm not confident he's going to play in the NFL for 3 more years. Sorry. So I'm just going to throw that out there. Darnold showed last year that in good circumstances, he can play. Oh, sorry. Let me rephrase that. In great circumstances, he is there is a reason why he was a top 3 pick. He is a phenomenal thrower of the football. He has playmaking ability. He is aggressive, throwing downfield. He is willing to attempt difficult throws. There are negatives that come with that, decision making, and then obviously a pressure sensitivity. But I feel comfortable in this range if we're talking about like, okay, do these guys have abilities, proven abilities in good circumstances? I would also argue, though, he doesn't have to be in a perfect situation. I think in a bad situation, it could be disastrous. Pardon me. I know that. We have seen it. But I think in even an average circumstance, he is proven that he can give you at least average quarterback play. I do believe that.
I don't think the circumstances are actually great for all of last season or most of last season. There was issues in the interior of the offensive line. The left tackle goes down. They bring Cam Robinson in. He was not up to the same level. What we did get to see was the extending plays, some more creativity. I don't think we had seen before, particularly
Yeah.
moving to throw, which was different than we've seen with him before, where it's kind of like headless and taking off and running and panicking an awful lot. His vision is keeping the eyes downfield and throwing the ball down the field whilst moving, I think raises the ceiling beyond what I had ever imagined it could have been before.
There is a throw he made against the Seahawks where he stepped up against pressure in a muddy pocket and hit like a whole shot to Justin Jefferson that I am convinced is why Sam Darnold is not his yeah. At some point I'll obviously do division previews and get into the Seahawks offense, but I do think you could make a case that it's not going to be a total disaster of a situation. And again, I think, do you have a much lower, or is this about the same range?
No, this is about the right range, yeah.
Okay. Well, you're next, 23.
I'm going to take Michael Penix Jr.
Okay. He's actually next for me,
Oh,
too.
he is? Okay,
Yep.
that makes me feel better. Michael Penix has a real, like, Geno vibe as well. They both have this kind of, like, have you noticed this arcing, rocking release they have where they just kind of bend at the hips and nothing else moves? The ball
Yeah.
just comes exploding out. We talked about some of the aggressiveness with Geno, unafraid to throw the ball anywhere over the field. Penix is completely unafraid with where he's going with the ball. Some of the stuff deep outside the numbers is really, really impressive. A tiny, tiny sample size, and there's a lot of inconsistent stuff mechanically. The release can be all over the place. I think everything needs to be quicker and slicker, but I do see the vision with him in a way that I was unsure of coming into the league.
Yeah, I think the Geno comp is a good one. I think Geno throws with more touch, and I think that was something. But I think also with Penix, you saw touch throws in college, and I think he just needs time. And I think an offense actually built around him, and a full off season where he's a starter will help in that regard. I also think, I don't know if this is going to get backlash. I think Geno's a little bit more athletic than him, but arm strength is it was so obvious the second he stepped on the field. I was like, oh God, what must it be like to go from catching passes from this version of Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix Jr. is like remarkable. I'm optimistic about him. I know this feels low to say I'm optimistic, but we just didn't see enough. And this is the case with a lot of the guys who are in this range, just haven't seen much. I think we're in this point of the draft where, like, when we talk about rookies and young guys and whatever, you have to ding them because playing the NFL is very different. You need to see a lot. I'll take Tua here. 24.
For 3 years? 3 years with Tua?
It's kind of like Stafford, where I'm guessing I get 2 out of 3, I guess. I don't know. He wasn't bad last year when he played. Oh, man. Do I want to do this? 2 of the guys I would take over him have not played a single down of NFL football. 2 other players.
Those are the 2 guys I ever have him too.
And Tua Tagovailoa, we have seen operate one of the most devastating offenses in NFL history. He was okay when he came back. They weren't really pushing it downfield, but there were always a litany of reasons for that. You really saw like the same strengths and weaknesses you've seen with him over the course of his career, just in an altered environment. I think whether or not you can hit a certain ceiling is obviously much more about the skill players that he's with. And, that's kind of just the nature of who he is as a quarterback at this point.
Yeah, it's just a strange one where it's not only that the environment has to be perfect for you to have like a playoff caliber offense and player. It's that it's so unusual and unorthodox, the system you have to build for him to be effective, that it just makes it really tricky in cap ceiling. There just isn't enough second reaction plays, which I think he actually improved at last season, but it's still, we're kind of grading on a curve like, oh, that's fun and exciting. Look at Tua trying something new. And it's just so different to when you watch the guys who are in the top 60 and 70 in the league.
All right, 25.
I'll take Cam Ward.
Okay, that was the guy I was obviously talking about. Yeah.
And I have really no hot take on Cam Ward. When I went and watched the film, I was like, wow, the arm is as live as any arm you will see. He wants to throw it to every level of the field. He can throw it to every level of the field. He could just wind up being slightly more talented Will Levis, because some of the decision-making stuff is really, really poor. But the talent and the arm, you mentioned earlier about, can you find a special trait? I mean, that is Stafford in his peak type arm talent we're dealing with it.
Yeah, don't need to really dig into more. I've talked about him endlessly over the last few months. I'm excited, interested, wary of how this will look year one, to be just blunt, I think. But that's not really about Cam Ward. Well, it is about Cam Ward a little bit, because I think he's going to have to iron out some of the stuff you talked about. But the talent certainly justified the pick. I'm taking JJ McCarthy next, 26. This one, I think he's going to look great, because I think he's walking. I mean, it's just, it's funny because we talked about Sam Darnold and how the circumstances weren't as good, but they went out and to improve the situation for him. But just like going back to who he was in college and the type of quarterback he was, when I think about the skills you need to run that offense at high level, it just does pair really nicely. You see why they chose him. Very small sample size in college, obviously, and then he has to play in the NFL, so there's some risk here. But I think he has the arm strength and athleticism to excel in the glorious situation that is being given to him.
I hope so, because if they bet on him, and they should have just kept Sam Darnold, that is going to break their lives for a long, long time. That's going to be a real grim decision, because the talent they have, the roster they've assembled, is so beyond belief what they've built on offense. I can't think play caller, line, situation, receivers, weapons, all across the board, of a guy going into year one in a better situation than that.
I know. It makes me want to be even higher on him than I am relative to perhaps who he is in a vacuum, because it's kind of like we were talking about, like, we're really trying to separate these guys from the situation, but I think he's going to look so good. Okay, 27, pardon me. All right,
okay,
we're in the end game now.
We're in the end game. Oh, okay. I'll take Jaxson Dart, because why not take the guy you've not seen over some of the guys you feel you got a
Okay,
good
so we're
read
doing him and not Russell Wilson.
We can do Russell Wilson if you want.
No, I mean, it's this is now we're in the range where you're making personnel decisions too.
Yeah, I will bet that Dart will start by week 7, week 8, somewhere in that range.
I totally go look at the schedule. Oh,
you just got to bet on the arm talent, the size, Daboll helping us see and showcase the best of his potential. I'm not a huge believer in that. Felt like a panic pick brought down from on high of going and finding a quarterback rather than a guy they truly, truly felt could be a special starter in the NFL. But he has high level traits if he can ever put them together.
I'm deciding between two guys here. I'm going to take Justin Fields here over someone with a similar size and build. You can guess who I'm thinking of. Would you take Justin Fields or Anthony Richardson? I'm taking Justin Fields. Okay, yeah. So okay.
I would take Justin Fields. Yeah.
Yeah. It was such a weird year in Pittsburgh, because we go into that season and we're like, all right, this guy is one of the most dynamic, explosive runners we see in the NFL. If they can harness that and they can build, a run game around his skill set, and maybe he hit some shot plays off of play action, you can do something. And then they just didn't do it. But he also, I believe, I've heard that was also coming from him, which makes me nervous as well, that he doesn't want to run as much as he did in Chicago. That's like we talk about, what does this guy do great? If Justin Fields is unwilling to run at a high level, like I'm talking Daniel Jones 2022 levels, then I'm not even gonna throw it out the window. But if he is, you can do something with him, Ollie.
Yeah, certainly. If he just accepts who he's going to be in the league, and maybe over time there could be more elements to his game, and he could have maybe a Geno arc where down the line he starts having top 12, top 13, top 14 seasons. He just has to buy it and accept that where he's at in his career right now, that, as you mentioned, that the superhuman trait is the explosiveness carrying the ball, the fearlessness while carrying the ball. If there's now some timidity to carry the ball so often, or he kind of wants to prove himself, which I think Caleb Williams fell into this last season, some from the pocket, was, I want to prove I'm a great pocket passer. It's like, well, let's go and win some games. Let's like maximize your strengths. That stuff can come on the backside. Let's not worry about everyone else. Let's go and put ourselves in the best situation. So if he just want to run the ball as often, and that's like a call from him, that's just, I don't know what the point would be of having him be a starting quarterback at this point.
Weird scheme fit too, assuming their offensive coordinator in New York is Tanner Engstrand, who comes from the Lions, which just okay. I mean, I'm not questioning the hire. I'm just like, that's not the right offense for Justin Fields. So it's just going to be an interesting, because he is definitely starting for them, no doubt about that. And I'm excited. I'm interested in seeing what it looks like, and I'm interested in seeing, because this is his shot, man. Like, there's an opportunity here for him. All right, who do you have at 29?
I'll take Tyler Shough.
Oh, wow.
Same reasoning of, I've not seen this guy play. I have severe reservations, but I've seen the other guys play. I have not seen Tyler Shough play. I get a 3-year chance to see what he looks like. Unbelievable arm. Great size, great build, can really run, good athlete. I think he is completely immune to throwing under pressure, to the point of being like scared of getting hit with all the injuries he's had, and just completely folding up and turning his body when he has to throw the ball under pressure. I think it's going to be a real problem in the league, but it is one where we'll know in like 3 weeks, possibly 3 snaps, of, okay, he is scared of throwing and getting hit in the NFL, or it was just a college thing. He wanted to go get paid in the league. He was still dealing with injuries, and we'll know pretty early on, is he kind of like scared of getting hit in the league or not? And if he's not scared of getting hit in the league, the throws were not pressured. When we're playing 7-on-7 football, he'd be in a top 10 pick in the draft.
Yeah. That's the question with him. Question about whether or not, some of the changes they've made on their offensive line can mitigate his his fatal flaw, potentially fatal flaw there. But in total agreement with you. I think if the line plays well, if Chris Olave is healthy, then this could actually look like a great value pick, to be honest. But that's a bunch of ifs. All right. We're down to 3 picks. The Browns, the Steelers, I guess Aaron Rodgers / Will Howard. Again, personnel choice here. And Anthony Richardson. I'm going to take Anthony Richardson here because we actually know he's the quarterback. Well, we don't. Sorry. Daniel Jones might win the job. Anthony Richardson's statistics are absolutely dismal. Last year, he was obviously benched. I think you have seen just enough to hold out a shred of hope that he can turn things around. Obviously, if there's like a win probability chart for that, it is very low at this point, but it is not at 0 for me with Anthony Richardson. I think on tape, this from watching him, it really isn't as bad as the numbers look. Some of it is that he has like a 20-yard average depth of target. Some of it is that there's bizarro drops and strange things happening constantly with the Indianapolis Colts offense that I don't quite understand. A lot of it is that he was just woefully inaccurate throwing short and intermediate. But Ollie, have you completely given up? I mean, we're at 30, so this is obviously no possibility of it.
I've not completely given up. If I was Les Snead or someone, I would be making a call, being like, let's go get him into a different environment. Let's see if we can clean some of this stuff up. I'd just try and put him on the Jalen Milroe plan a couple of years after the Jalen Milroe plan, if I was another team in the NFL, if indeed he gets benched and Daniel Jones becomes the starter. So I could see him having a kind of 2-year run somewhere where it's not all put together, but it's put together a little more than it is right now. All kind of the cliches about him: the big arm, throw hard, refuses to take any reps, RPMs off the ball, can't layer the ball, can't feather the ball, can't put the ball in the bucket, is all true. You get to see really, really magical throws with him, which I think will always keep people enticed. There's obviously the special size and speed element in the run game.
Sack evasion.
Sack
He's
evasion, yeah, no one can bring him down. Literally no one. They hit him, they fall down. So I would always vow as a team every season I'd bring him into camp and just be like, this could be the year. I'm buying in. I think the major concern with him is he got plugged into the best environment for his skill set. They literally brought Shane Steichen in and said, here is Jalen Hurts. He's taller, he weighs more, he can throw the ball farther. Like, they tried to replicate the situation as best as they could, and it's so not worked. That would be kind of the major concern if he's just a rosterable player in the NFL in 3 years.
All right. You get to choose. You taking the Steelers or the Browns quarterback situation?
Oh, I don't know if I want to be anywhere near that Browns quarterback situation. Going through 4 of them, I'll take Aaron Rodgers. I kind of would, for 3 years, probably rather have Will Howard. Kind of like Will Howard, but I'll take Aaron Rodgers.
Do you think that, because there was at the end of the Aaron Rodgers tenure in New York, there were starting to be calls of, he's actually playing well.
No, yeah, I know, no, he was terrible. He was terrible. I understand the stats aren't so bad. The guy was trying not to get hit and get out of the season clean, is what was happening.
Yeah, right. Dead last in air yards per, or 32nd, pardon me. I think Tua was like below him. 34th in completion percentage, over expected. But this was just like, what do your eyes tell you?
Yeah, he was fossilized.
Okay, so I'm gonna pick a Brown. I think it's gonna be Gabriel. So I'm picking Dillon Gabriel here at 32nd. I think the Browns brass looked at him. I think Kevin Stefanski is gonna pick him. I do. Just in terms of thinking who runs this offense. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's Joe Sanders. Let's see what happens this summer. Either way, I'm not optimistic, obviously, about the Browns quarterback situation.
No, I think going into the season with Dillon Gabriel as your start as a rookie is just a recipe for a mess, and a recipe for even further controversy as you have to kind of juggle between 3 or 4 guys throughout the season.
Do you think Sanders can win the job?
That would come down to, I think, to effort and attitude off the field more so than who can throw the ball the best on 3rd and long. I think he's the best quarterback they have in the building right now for 3rd and long situations, and he is so perfect for the offense. It's frustrating with some of the off the field stuff because I might comp him all the way through the draft was he's Brock Purdy. That's who he is. And I think putting him with Stefanski is the ideal situation for point and shoot, point guard Shough. It's just all the kind of extracurricular stuff, how bought into is it with it and all that stuff.
Yeah, I'm in agreement. I think we talked about him as Kirk Cousins, aka Brock Purdy Sr. Brock Purdy is more mobile than both of those people. Actually, he's more mobile than Shitter Sanders. But in terms of like accuracy, throwing over the middle of the field, all of that, it does make sense. He just has to play faster.
Yep.
If he's willing to play faster, if he's capable of playing faster, he is obviously the best quarterback to run this offense. I just went with Gabriel because it just seems like they like him. Like he was drafted where he was for a reason. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. That's one where I actually really just want to pay attention to what happens this summer because we're going to learn a lot. But in any case, the draft is over. Who is going to be the angriest now that we are finished? Jags,
certainly. Probably the Bears fans who are believing in the potential and that we're not dumping enough on the situation last season to not have Caleb even higher just on the 3-year outlook.
I don't think any of the guys who haven't played, their fan bases can get mad because that's just silly. Niners. Purdy, where did he land? 16, 17? I think is that probably Niners. But otherwise, I guess maybe Bengals fans with Joe Burrow coming in 4th. I don't know. And also the Justin Herbert haters, which that's like half the NFL. In the meantime, this is really fun. Guys, go check out Ollie's podcast, The Read Optional, also newsletter, also called The Read Optional. Is just readoptionalsubstack.com is where
that's right. Yep.
Okay. Readoptionalsubstack.com. At some point we're going to do offenses and defenses, but we are going to do AFC X Factors next week with Greg Rosenthal, who Ollie also appears on Greg's podcast pretty regularly now, NFL Daily, which is very good. I have an interview coming out, I think next week by the time you hear this, with Levante David, which was a total delight. He's the best. And you can check that out at youtube.com/@Mina Kimes or on ESPN2, where the show also airs. You can check this out on ESPN2. Thank you, as always, to everybody at Omaha Productions, Kirsten Sebecki, Anthony Jimenez, Owen Saylor, Jack Foster, Tucker Tashjian, and I'll see you guys next week.